It's about time to get started. Welcome everybody to the February installment of the Sundress Virtual Reading Series featuring Laura Cresté, Ranjani Murali, and Jeannine Ouellette, and presented by the Sundress Academy for the Arts. I'm Stacy Estep, the Reading Series Coordinator. And for those of you who might not know, Sundress Academy for the Arts, or SAFTA, is a writer's residency and arts collective that hosts workshops, retreats, and residencies for writers in all genres, including poetry, fiction, nonfiction, journalism, academic writing, playwriting, and more. And you can find out more at our website, which is sundressacademyforthearts.com. And we'd like to thank the Tennessee Arts Commission for making this event possible tonight. And right now I'd like to welcome Arlen Dunn, who will introduce this month's community partner. Arlen?
All right, can you all hear me okay? Okay, good. All right, so I'm Arlen Dunn, and I'm the Community Outreach Director. And every month during our reading, we partner with another local community, nonprofit in the area to raise awareness about their organization and what they're doing in our community. And this month, we have the privilege of partnering with the Next Step Initiative. We also have Rebecca Parr with us, who is going to be sharing with us for the next few minutes about Next Step Initiative and how people can get involved. In the chat, I put the website and also ways people can donate to support them. So Rebecca, I invite you to unmute yourself and give us a little more information about your organization. Thank you.
Great, thank you. First of all, thank you so much, Sundress, for recognizing our organization. I don't know exactly how that came about, but we're so appreciative. Next Step is an organization. It started, we had our first meeting in September of 2017. I had an idea about how possibly mindfulness and art might help folks who are living more marginalized lives have a greater connection to themselves and then to others in the community. And my sister, I invited her to come. That's Addie Arbach, and she's kind of the heart of Next Step. I invited her to that meeting. 2 years prior, she had lost her son to MRSA, and it just happened to be his birthday that day of that meeting. We're fast movers. My sister, she was not necessarily as interested in the arts and that stuff as much as she is interested in saving lives and helping people. So she went about doing what she was doing. That first year, we ended up registering with the state, and by March of 2018, we were distributing naloxone, Narcan, which is the overdose reversal medication. My sister went out meeting people on the streets, going into different communities, and getting folks into treatment who wanted to go to treatment, finding out what the needs were. In the first year, we also were doing what we called a feel-good happiness hour. We went into different organizations and brought in mindfulness and art. It became very apparent pretty quickly on that my role kind of shifted from being able to do the mindfulness and art to doing more administrative because we needed resources. So I began doing more administrative, building a board and putting together organization. Since then, we've flown and grown. By 2019, we were awarded a large grant through harm reduction, HEP Connect. And that's because of the fact that we are out there working to save lives. That was enabled us to get a van, get a center, hire some staffing, get administrator, a lot of different things. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what our programming is. One of the things that we have is our Trenches to Treatment, and that's basically going out and meeting people where they are on the streets. We provide showers, and we get IDs for folks, get them into treatment, do case management. Sometimes it might not be that they're getting necessarily addiction treatment for addiction, but maybe for medical or mental health, different things. We give out toiletries, a lot of different things, and we use a lot of volunteers for that, and we have a small staff with case management. Then we have Hope Hearts in the Arts, which we did for a while, but COVID kind of took away some of the ability to meet in person with folks. But that was a weekly meeting where we did some of the mindfulness and art. And that's kind of a little bit on a hold right now, but we do it as we can when we have larger events. Then we also more recently have started another program. It's called Noon's House. Addie's son's name was Brandon and his nickname was Noon. And that is a transitional house for young women who are coming out of treatment. A lot of these women that we have worked with, we've known a long time. We're actually moving into our house in March. We'll take a little while to get it ready and we'll be getting it up and running by late March. And that will be a free transitional program because my sister strongly states regularly that we do not believe in making any money off of people's addiction. So we do not want it to become a halfway house. We want to help people to continue to go into ongoing treatment or whatever is best suited for them, and education or whatever that is. So we're kind of in many places at once. There's a lot of work that's being done. I'm going to give you a few numbers just because it's appropriate to do so, but individual clients that we have had participate has been over 9,050. We've given out over 3,337 doses of Narcan, and these are the numbers as of December of 2020. We have trained folks. We also have held 12 community events. We continue to feed people throughout COVID. We still feed people every day, going out in the streets, and they can come to the center. We also do believe a lot in collaboration, and we've worked with a lot of community partners. And before COVID, we had events. We had one under the bridge where a lot of the homeless folks, the day center there in Knoxville, and that was to serve folks. And we had health department and just a lot of folks, Planned Parenthood. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I can't remember everybody right now. But so we're very busy doing a lot of stuff and always growing. And maybe we shouldn't have named it Next Step because somehow we always are moving into what's the next step for folks. But there's a lot of folks who've been helped, and we will continue to do so. And we appreciate anything that you're able to give. Every little bit goes a long way. We put all of our money into the folks out on the street for the most part. We also, I want to throw this in, we feed hundreds of people. We are partnered with Second Harvest, and we get meals that we give to families that we hand out. We do individual meals. We do a few different organizations. We are also serving some of the halfway houses, and it's all free food that we give out. And we're doing hundreds of people on a weekly basis that we're feeding. So thank you so much once again for letting us participate and be part of this. And I look forward to hearing some of the readings. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or if you want any more information.
Thank you, Rebecca. We really appreciate you being here and the work that your organization does, especially for so many people who are displaced right now with all the various weather that we're experiencing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arlen and Rebecca. Okay, so we will get on with our readings tonight. Our first reader is Laura Cresté. She's the author of You Should Feel Bad, which was selected by Stephanie Burt for a 2019 Poetry Society of America Chapbook Fellowship. She holds an MFA in poetry from New York University and a BA from Bennington College. The winner of Breakwater Review's 2016 Peseroff Prize, her poems have appeared in journals including No Tokens, Tinderbox, and Bodega. She has received support from the Community of Writers, the Kettle Pond Writers Conference, and will be a 2021-2022 fellow at the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown. And please, everyone, let us know if you would like a copy of the readings tonight. We can send you a copy so you can follow along for any of these. So please welcome Laura.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Sundress. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Erin and Jeannine, Ranjani. I'm really excited to hear your work. I'm going to be reading a few poems from my chapbook, which just came out in like November, December. You know, the date got a little strange with the pandemic, but it's sort of recent. So I'm going to be reading 3 poems from the chapbook and then some newer work. And this first poem is called 3 Girls, Bridgehampton. The girls become seals in their wetsuits in the ocean off of Peters Pond Lane, where I'm paid to drive their mother's car down the dirt path. The fields are purpling all over. There are ticks in the phlox and insect eggs like spit in the center of the bloom. Phoebe wants to wear her cashmere sweater to surf camp in the morning chill. But the sunscreen, I remind her, and Ainsley says, don't, it costs like $300. Paige says, stop talking about money. What she means is, don't talk about it in front of me. She's careful like that. Remember, Alice Notley says, to complain of money will ruin your conversation. If you do not complain of money, there is probably something wrong with your life. At the neighbor's vineyard, grapes are plump in their rows, the rosé almost spent. There's a teepee stark naked in the backyard. It looks wholesome as corn silk, but the 14-year-old tells me there are wild parties inside. People did lines of coke off a severed pig's head in that teepee. Why? After a pig roast, Ainsley clarifies. The children are delivered to the sea. I turn to leave, then remember I need to pee, so I walk right into the ocean. And this next one is called An Incomplete List of What I Can't Tell You, which is mainly just things that I continually forget or never knew in the first place. Why live oaks aren't just called oaks, and whether all moths splay their wings open at rest, or some hold them closed like crossed legs. Whether nonplussed is surprise or its absence. How to make a fire. Why we say ripped to describe a body that's muscled and whole. Whether to believe those who say they've seen an eastern cougar upstate, though scientists know they're extinct. Why it was a ghost cat before it even died. What I said to my dead grandmother in the dream when she strode through the door on Thanksgiving and asked for a plate. I was worried she wouldn't be able to eat and would be embarrassed. How she said to me, "You were wrong, heaven is real." What I'd feel if I could believe it. What it means that my grandfather hunted deer after the war. Statistical odds, and if 3 people in my family have fallen down cellar stairs to their deaths, whether it's more or less likely to happen to me. What kind of fruit tree we stood beside when my mother told me the skin cancer on her arm was nothing to worry about. She snapped a cluster of twigs off and held it out like a chicken foot. All our fruit trees are dying, she said, whether it was crabapple or pear. Why ravenous refers to neither ravens nor ravines. The moon's name. I thought every moon in autumn was a harvest moon, but I lived in a city and never grew my own food. What did I know of the harvest? And this next one is the title poem in my collection, and the last one I'll be reading from the chapbook. You should feel bad. The yoga studio near Mike's apartment has chalked outside, nourish yourself, feed the world, which means nothing. Yoga is nice, the pull in your thigh, your hip letting go, but things that feed the world include soy, animals, and vegetables. Sorry. I walk faster when I refuse a homeless man $1. I feel bad when I buy coffee in a plastic cup, so I feel bad nearly every day. When my friend cheated on his wife, the other woman said, I have nothing to be sorry for. Yes, it's more my friend's fault, but isn't there enough sorry to go around? My mother writes to a murderer, worried he doesn't have enough books. He calls the prison his university, mails my mother villanelles to type. Tenderness can be unbearable. When Mike dances to our favorite local commercial to make me laugh, I know we're living in the good years. All of our parents are still alive, and so are we and the family dog. How much time do we have? I confess I love being lazy, supine with a book and something to eat. The word fat used to hurt me so much. Even in a book innocuous enough, a fat woman waited for the train. It pained me. Like crying in Old Navy, trying on swimsuits before the pool party, I wouldn't wish 6th grade on anyone. I try to keep alive in my mind Dylan Kay, a 4th grader in my mother's school, who, when punished by the lunch aides for something that wasn't his fault, said, "You're assholes and I'm leaving." And he did. He walked right out of school, an act I can only call sublime. Perfect as a ladybug that doesn't get killed, spared for being festive as a party dress. It isn't fair. I say my friend's stepmother is actually a dumb bitch. She voted for Trump. Still, it's like something out of a man's mouth and not anyone I'd sleep with. For that, I'm sorry. Sorry, always on my tongue. Women apologize for accidental touches, pocketbooks swinging widely, hands sliding down the subway pole, a chorus of sorries. Maybe it's weak, but I love it when we're careful, because the world is not careful with us. What's braver than a girl walking alone at night? The only stars that cut through are the brightest, and sometimes they're not even stars. The future humans won't see this night sky, certain constellations drifted into the cosmic soup. When they read our maps, will they believe us? And will they be here, puzzling the charts, reading anything at all? For now, everything is still possible. The tunnels honeycombing the city, the reef of train cars sunk into the Hudson. Oysters haven't yet, but might someday return. I want to feel bad, and I want to get better. Okay, and this next one is sort of new. It's called Dead Horses. I like to imagine when horses were unremarkable as Toyotas, when you wouldn't turn to your companion after spotting them in a field and say, horses. I'm alive because an ancestress on horseback caught a man's eye on the Belt Parkway in Brooklyn. He followed her in his car. They married. Across the hemisphere, my great-grandfather Domingo hoisted his 13-year-old bride onto a horse and stole her away. When she saw her mother again, they were both old women. But I wouldn't wish it undone. I want to get born. I never asked my grandmother what it was she loved about horses. That shattering speed, how their eyelashes look human, that they're loyal as dogs but dignified. She owned something like 1/60th of a racehorse. She's not alive, but just Zip It still is. I tell my friend I'm thinking a lot about dead horses, and she thinks I mean dying horses, the broken back in Anna Karenina or the glue factory. No, I am thinking of my own dead and how they were carried. The last time I was on a horse, I worried I was too heavy, that she would buckle, an animal once ridden into war. I was a teenager and jealous of the freedom I believed thin people had. Now I know no one feels free. We were in the pampas of Argentina, and her name was Ramona. She devoured the countryside, ravenous for the time we were allowed in the field. And this next one is called Overripe. Sometimes it's like this. Slugs discover the basil no matter where we plant it. Batshit on the welcome mat. I cave in the burrow between cherry tomatoes and rosemary. Every day the chipmunks dig anew until I fill the hole with sticks, menacing as the Blair Witch. After the rainstorm, I skim 1 dead frog, 3 dead newts, and 2 live ones from the pool. There are weevils in the flour, weevils in the sugar, and something in my bottle of vitamins, sweet as candy. The late tomatoes split lewd as Jesus with his bloody heart, and the pool is topped off like my cup at the most expensive wedding I've been to, where the waiters never let me see the bottom of my glass. Last night I saw lightning, or else the blue pulse of a device meant to drive rodents insane. Mike loves a never-ending task, so he collects twigs in the yard after every storm, but I believe in entropy and let it alone. Creeping Jenny spills over the wine barrel repurposed for planting, long and limp as my hair in college. I drive to the farm with a sign over corn on ice. Every corn has a worm, do not open to check. When I turn the ignition, a chipmunk crawls out of the hood, and we astonish each other through the glass, a baby. Which is what I called Mike when he muttered darkly, self-accusing, losing chess game after chess game, "Don't be such a baby." He didn't like that. I could sit outside and watch the daily dramas play across the yard. Instead, I shut the door and read about a weasel Annie Dillard saw 40 years ago. The truth is, I can't stop thinking of the dead frog. Something terrible happened to his skin, water repellent sliding off like jelly, a bubble taut across his mouth. My insurance stopped covering my particular birth control, so I give it up and feel slightly more animal, sore breasts, and more so when I give up plastic for a shampoo bar and turn greasy from the coconut oil. When I was born, my aunt said my dark cap of hair felt like an otter's pelt. The radishes never take. Snakes undulate in the pool and leave their skins behind on the stone wall, like the flimsy dresses I'd shuck off as I climbed drunk into bed for years. The therapist in my phone asks if the meditation he prescribed is helping. Does it matter? I just need the summer to end, for the garden to die back a little. And I just have 2 left. This next one is called This Is Just to Say. This is just to say, William Eric Williams, son of the poet doctor, was my pediatrician until I was 4 and he died. He gave me a chickenpox shot and a sticker for being brave when my mother told him she knew the poem about the plums by heart. He said that wasn't really a poem, just a note for his mother. In the blue house on Ridge Road, I was knocking my heels against history, oblivious. I was eating a cherry lollipop and affixing a sticker to my velvet dress, ruining the feel. His father hated and loved our town as much as I would one day. In the Paris Review, the interviewer noted, Pound went to Europe, but William stayed, to my sorrow. A very bad environment, he called it, and that was when we were still a bit pastoral. I have never seen chickens, none that were living, and the only wheelbarrow here is symbolic, red, chained to a tree outside the library. We had plums in our yard and crab apples until all the trees got brown rot. Not quite 2 square miles, a dry town, a blue line was painted between the yellow on the road outside the police station. I went to school with the children of too many cops. Their houses didn't grow any flowers. The year after college when I came back and would get drunk across the railroad tracks where bars were permitted, go home with men who'd once starred in the school plays. Backstage, I'd silently hand over the costume changes. They lived with their parents but had finished basements, etc. On very clear nights on the porch of the bar, writing on my phone or waiting to get drunk enough to kiss someone, I could see the moon rising over the football stadium in the distance. It was renamed for an insurance company, but who wouldn't rather imagine giants? Okay, and this is my last poem. Thank you again for having me. This is great. This is called Socrates with Fleas. After his mom dropped him off, he attacked his tail like it didn't belong to him. So I scooped him up, 10 pounds of resistance in my arms, and Mike applied the chemical potion, careful not to sting his eyes or his groin, while I held him in the tub like a baby on my chest facing the world, flea shampoo running down our legs, while the dog named for a philosopher tried to flail out of my arms like a caught fish at the bottom of a boat, his last chance before being gutted. Watery in certain lights, he is more like a furtive, land-bound prey, the size of a rabbit. His rabbit heart leapt into my palm, slamming the thin wall of his grizzled chest. He was wary of Mike for 2 days, but I was the favorite, followed from couch to bed to toilet, as if I were protecting him, as if I hadn't been part of it. I read the Galway Canal poem where he says to his infant, I think you think I will never die. Children grow up, but dogs never have to face it. Socrates thinks nothing ever dies, not even the gecko he catches in his jaw, once in all his years of chasing. He learns you can swallow the tail and the lizard still escapes with his life. A year later, Mike thinks he came up with the name Socrates. No, I have to tell him I invented it, and you were so impressed with me. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. That was gorgeous work. All right. Our next reader tonight is Ranjani Murali. She's an Indian writer who lives in suburban Chicago. She received her MFA in poetry from George Mason University, following which she won the Srinivas Rayaprol Prize for Emerging Indian Poets, fellowships from the Vermont Studio Center and the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown, and the inaugural Prabha Khaitan Woman's Voice Award. Her first book of poems, Blind Screams, won the Almost Island inaugural manuscript prize, and her second book, Clearly You Are ESL, won the Editor's Choice Award in the Great Indian Poetry Collective's manuscript competition and was published in 2020. Please welcome Ranjani.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Ed and Stacy, Arlen, everybody at Sundress. Thank you for having me. And Laura, that was amazing. It's been such a long time since I just sort of lost myself in poems. And even though I'm a really visual, I'm one of those readers who has to have the text in front of them. I was completely riveted and I was just hanging on to every word. So I'm going to actually share my screen with you. Oh, it just says the host has disabled part. Okay. Well, I wanted to share my screen with you to show you the poems, but I guess that's not going to happen. Is it possible, Stacy, at all?
Julie, can you make that happen?
Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Thank you.
There we go.
Right. I'm just one of those visual readers. So, and I'm reading off of the computer anyway. So I thought I would share my screen with you. Also, just given my accent, I just find it easier for myself to have it in front of me. So I'm going to start with a couple of poems from this book, which is a really cute square book. My editor, Shikha's here. The great Indian poetry collective publishes a lot of Indian and Indian diaspora poets. So I had a lot of fun. And like Laura, it was kind of strange to have it out at the end of, or just, during the pandemic. But these are some fun poems. I hope you'll like them. This one's called The Workbook Cursive, and it's meant to also be a fill-in poem where you can write along. Workbook Cursive 1. There is a bull. It has a big head. You have bullets in your bag. The bull is looking at your bag. Your bag is orange. You are peeling an orange. Your friend throws away the peels. The bull sniffs at the peels. Your friend is looking at the bull. The bull kicks its heels. Orange peels are lying at your heels. Your friend is lying. There is a gun in his head. Tourist notice 1. Please watch your electronic items, your wallet, your passport, your breasts, your edibles, your laptop cases, the nape of your neck, your Barnes & Noble gift cards, your frosty lipstick, the small of your back and the line of your spine, your sneakers, your stilettos, your evening shoes, your morning after pills, your Advils, your breakfast bars with a low glycemic index, your pale freckled arms, your outlet mall bags, your super absorbent tampons, your vegan gummy bears, your grapefruit gum. 2, we are asking you not to stand in line, but to fan out into the line. Ours is an egalitarian society. We believe that everyone must approach from sameness, stand with the line rather than in line. If you want coffee, please ask thrice and mention you do not want milk because we are a nation of dairy connoisseurs. We bathe our newborns in milk and cream and swathe our brides in milk-drenched silks, our dead in milk-white shrouds. If you think that women can wear pants, we will agree most amicably, but please don't rub the back pockets of your tapering jeans when you wish to stretch or arch your back. It is obscene, and we invite a man to stroke it. Then you must not claim that he is bumping into you everywhere because we agree he is. Landing. At Pilameda Airport, the woman in the khaki pants looked at me with a twisting lower lip. Do you have any portable electronic items? She asked. Yes, I replied. though they are mostly gifts for former lovers. She stepped closer and unzipped the sleeve running down my arm. You are not allowed to carry this through the scanner, she said, pulling out a boiled egg I carried because I had a protein deficiency. I saw her crush the egg between her fingers and her palm until the soft flesh split along the axis. Here, she said, holding up yellow-gray yolk as though she had harvested an oyster. Eat it. I looked around at the gentleman in the gray safari suit and asked him to hold my electronic stilts. Then I sat on the floor, cross-legged, wiping my hands on my thighs. She handed the small grumbling glob and I put it in my mouth, pressing it down with my tongue instead of biting. I felt it stick to my teeth and tasted the stench of rusting metal. Swallow it, she said. I tried passing the goop through my throat, but the dry croissant I ate on the plane made its way up. As I vomited near her feet, the woman shook her head, turned to her colleague and said, maybe the shell cracked as it boiled. So in India, we have this thing where you can get your, kind of like a tarot reading, but you can get your fortune read by a man who has a padlet, and then the padlet picks a card from the deck and he interprets the card for you. Beggars. Yes, the padlet in the cage is mine, but he reads fortunes. On rainy days, he flicks his head toward the anthill on the side of this tree. Famous men come to see him. The director who recently celebrated the 100th day jubilee, the local minister, the mayor, and even the child star who likes to play with cheetah cubs in his spare time. The smell of feline hair on him sends the bird into a tizzy. He claws at my knuckles and then draws always the tarot card with the goddess riding a lion, as if he has felt the tearing of a claw under his silken neck, the sound of a cat licking itself before the blood comes, the instant when the cage snaps shut and the predator, leashed and delirious, is foaming at the mouth, standing outside, waiting to hear his fortune. So the phrase eve teasing, in case you're not familiar with it, it's basically a euphemism for sexual harassment in India. So just clarifying that. My father leans against a counter at Adyaranand Bhavan, pointing to the murukku as if it were a twisted rag dripping with oil in the Madras of plastic bangle summers. I find a corner where a man stands close to me, breathes into my ear, the threat of his fingers echoing against the clatter of plastic tubs filled with stainless steel plates. Spare me, I think, the way my lover spares me of gracelessness in our afternoon heat, where sweat drips into my ears in patterns I can only hear as the rounding up of tickets strewn on the steaming aluminum grooves on the floor of the bus. Buying me a sweet lassi, my father rests on the glass shelf, an arm absent-mindedly around me, the possibility of intrusion now dispersed, washed and gargled by those spitting into the open sinks nearby. The water seems cool and one woman fills her cup and swills, her rida flying under the electric fan swaying from side to side, contours of a swathed bosom emerging where the line of her jaw stretched to. Rose milk, I think the color is called. And when the crimson of her lips is smudged, her bosom is covered again, while mine, covered all the while, sweating behind a case of glass, has been on display, the sweetmeats selecting my consumption, their eyes boring a fire into my navel, where the threat of a pinch remains unguarded by a girded jaw. Sonnet for a City Park. This is actually really funny because my dad and I used to go for a walk in the park, and the park quite literally means like a place where a billion people are milling around, and we saw an actress once and my dad was really excited. When May arrives, there are yellow flowers on every stone bench, oozing a muggy, bitter oil. The balding men with birdseed in their pockets, clad in shorts and hats, stare at a woman in faded capris, her hair bunched into a ponytail, her arms oars traversing a whimsical sea of fellow joggers. She is an actress, my father whispers, and I wipe my face with the back of my hand where the milk of a magnolia has fallen. The smudge of this ivy will light my face into a myriad of pinpricks, a bevy of blisters, aflame with the knowledge that the next time I rent her film, I will scratch my face vigorously, those eyes full of abandon, those arms a free sail chopping through the ocean of faces, all pinpricks like mine, no spots to call their own. And then finally, I just wanted to end with this poem. So apparently I try to do humor. I know a lot of us try to. I love poems that attempt humor. So here's my weak, feeble attempt at humor. My first book was called Blind Screens, and it's all about, Bollywood and Tamil movies. Tamil is a language in the southern part of India. And so there's always this trope of a guy who stalks a woman and somehow gets her to acquiesce or agree in the end. And it's an overused and terrible trope. So this is called circa 1970 Tamil film Stalker's Ghazal, and it's not really a ghazal, as you can see. But these are actual translations from a subtitle in the film. So I thought it would just be a nice end, and you could see some of the quirky things that all of us as Indians enjoy. So these subtitles are the subtitles to a song. From the front, you're Tanjore, which is a historic city. From the back, you are the Taj Mahal, which everybody knows. You are a big city indeed. You are my capital city. And this is the hero singing it to his love interest. Dear dove, I assure you, our stars do align. Your winged eyeliner cinches my affections, a truly astral line. Like a highway, your powdered neck guides me to your cheekbones. Your decahedron pendants are my guilty pleasures, your hook, sinker, and proverbial line. Your hair is tied back into a high bouffant that must hurt when you nod, upon which is there a sight more beautiful than your coiffed mane? I sing my line. What armor, my love, what conical fabric contraptions gird your breasts? What viscous suspensions lid down your eyes make Pluto their crease lines? 2 days back, I saw you at the bank, a locus, a center with moving points around. The boy by my side whistled at you. I broke his neck. He missed the line. And yet you smiled at the director today and rushed against his shoulder. If only he could have kept you from falling right near that exposed power line. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. That was great imagery and nice to end on some humor there. All right, our final reader this evening is Jeannine Ouellette, the author of The Part That Burns, a memoir in fragments. Her work has appeared in Calyx, Narrative, North American Review, Masters Review, Tupelo Quarterly, Writer's Chronicle, among others, and in several anthologies, including Misaligned, Women Writing About Men and Women's Lives, Multicultural Perspectives. Her work has been supported by the Malay Colony for the Arts and Brush Creek Foundation for the Arts. She teaches writing through the University of Minnesota, the Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop, and Elephant Rock, an independent creative writing program she founded in 2012. She is working on her first novel. Please welcome Jeannine.
Thank you, Stacey. Thank you, Sundress, so much for having me. And Laura and Ranjani, your work was so beautiful. It's such a pleasure to be here with both of you. Yeah, just such a pleasure to listen. And also Next Step Initiative, is that the name of the community partner? Just really want to thank you for the work you're doing in Knoxville. I have a very good friend in Knoxville who lost her son to a drug overdose about 10 years ago. And what you're doing is just so important. So it's a pleasure to be and an honor to be here with you tonight. I'm going to read from my debut memoir, which actually just came out this month. It's The Part That Burns. And I'm going to read from the title chapter. There's a kind of the opening of that chapter stands a little bit alone, I feel like, as a reading. So that's what we're going to do. And I think all you really need to know here is that the narrator is 9 months pregnant with her second child and has recently moved from the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, to a rural community. On the last day of July, Mom visits. She settles herself at our kitchen table, the one John and I bought at Target for our first apartment. Slab of cheap pine, soft and light, full of lines and divots from 3 years of scraping plates and chopping vegetables. In one spot, the table has the word hurry etched from an incident during my maternity leave before I quit my advertising sales job at the News Weekly in Minneapolis. I was on the kitchen phone that day with my boss while also nursing Sophie, who spewed a ferocious stream of breast milk across my chest and lap, soaking herself and me. I had needed John to grab towels and fast. I should have just ended the called back after cleaning up the mess. But in those first fragile days of motherhood, I still believed I could hide the dirt and indignity, the fluids and the bruised organs. I still believed I could hide anything at all. Uh-oh, I say now, grabbing a green plastic letter I from Sophie, who is stuffing it into her mouth. I stick the magnet high on the refrigerator door. Must have fallen, I say. Mom wears her hair short now, in grassy tufts, much like those shag cuts she gave me as a child. She keeps tucking clumps behind her ears, between sips of the strong coffee I brewed for her. I drink cold raspberry leaf tea from a mason jar. This concoction is meant to make labor easier, a tidbit I learned from one of my books on natural childbearing. A quart a day of this tea I drink. Mom's latest apartment is a narrow duplex in the same Northeast neighborhood where John grew up. Her visit today is a rarity. Mom doesn't like highway driving, and Center City is almost an hour from Minneapolis, all highway. Normally, if I want Sophie to see Mom, I have to drive to wherever Mom is. Her new duplex makes visiting easier. The rooming house before the duplex was awkward. Before the rooming house, well, those were the lost years. Right after I aged out of foster homes, Rachel and I landed in when Mom lost the house. I didn't keep track of Mom during the lost years, so it surprised me after Sophie was born. It truly did, the balloon of yearning that rose in me. It filled the open cavity where Sophie had just been, expanded into an ache so deep it felt almost like pleasure. And why shouldn't I want my mama back? With me being an adult now, she doesn't have to do anything. Plus, with Sophie, maybe I can give her something she's never had, like the chance to love a child in the kind of uncomplicated way she could never love me. Isn't this house amazing, Mom? I say. Mom glances around the old kitchen with its vintage sink and drain boards, rough-hewn cupboards I painted white myself, light maple floor, and best of all, the wooden screen door to the porch overlooking the open water of North Center Lake. Isn't it wonderful, Mom? Mom bends her grassy head over her coffee cup and sips. This is a thing Mom does, this silence when I try to goad her into praise. But I want her to be proud of me for what I have accomplished. A marriage and family, my galloping mare of a daughter who already speaks extraordinary sentences, 5 and 6 words long and more, such as, I do remember furry clouds, and look, Mama, tree arms in the sky. I want Mom to notice how careful I am with Sophie, how when she bites me, I never slap her mouth or even shout. Rather, I say, Sophie, no biting, then lift her onto my lap and hold her. Only if she bites again, which she sometimes does, do I set her down more firmly and walk away to keep from losing my temper. And even on those few times when I have lost my temper and raised my voice, yelled that biting is not okay, is bad, and pulled Sophie off of me too roughly, yanked her doughy arm too hard, tried to hurt her just a little. I didn't mean it, not at all, and I won't ever defend myself for those times, not even to myself. I am sorry, so sorry. Mom, I say again, isn't it something, this house? House, mouse, louse, Mom says. It's fine. It reminds me of Florence's old place in Duluth. Hers was smaller, of course, and not on the lake. Now she's up on the Iron Range. Interesting, I say, with no interest. I haven't seen or heard from my great aunt Florence since we left Duluth for Wyoming. I don't care. How about Mafia, I say meanly. Is he still in the workhouse? Tina, the daughter of the woman Mafia married after Mom, reported Mafia a couple of years back for sexual misconduct. Apparently, Tina told a school counselor what Mafia was doing to her, what he had been doing for years, just as he had done to me. The counselor was mandated to tell social services, and Tina's mom not only left Mafia immediately, but also, I can't help but note, did everything possible to make sure charges were pressed. That's why Mafia's a convicted sex felon now. I wonder if he's on one of those neighborhood watch lists, I say to Mom, or post office signs. I have no business tracking the doings of Michael, Mom says, nor do you. He molested me, Mom. That's a reason. This is not the conversation I had planned, nor is it one my mother and I have ever had, not even at the end of 8th grade after I saw that film about incest in health class, the one that prompted me to tell Mom what I remembered about Mafia. My announcement back then only tuned the thin string of silence between us to a sharper pitch. Here, in my own kitchen, though, my mason jar of herbal tea feels smooth and cool between my palms. It feels like the word here and mine. I watch myself wind up. I hear myself swing. I hope he is still in the workhouse, I say. I'm glad Tina's mother pressed charges or whatever. It's crazy how it's shit and biscuits is what it is, Mom blurts out. What, Mom? I say. Across the room, Sophie babbles cheerfully about bigger, yellow, small, as she pulls plastic bowls and aluminum pans from the bottom cupboard, which I have filled with these items just for her. Suddenly, she feels far away. I exerted myself, Mom says. I made him go to counseling. For what? Counseling for what? For the things he was, look, you know for what. She licks the rim of her cup, and the sight of her coated tongue fills my mouth with sand. I want to slap her. You're saying you knew when I was little? You knew what he was doing? July sun bounces off the surface of North Center Lake and pours brilliance into the room. Sophie's thin baby hair has sprung into sweaty ringlets and her skin shines pink with summer, but I am shivering. Sophie looks up at me suddenly, her bright round face stretching open like a field toward a distant horizon, much farther away than I can see. I'm saying I was worried he might have, and he said he promised after that he wouldn't, Mom says. He promised it was over. Still, when he left that time, left Meadowlark Hills after he smashed the furniture and whatnot, I said he had to get help. I said he had to or he couldn't come back. Her lazy eye goes loose, while her strong eye, aimed dead on me, narrows and hardens. I picture her as a child on the farm in Smithville, with her eye patch and Coke bottle glasses. I picture her playing in the forbidden woods behind the old tracks, tripping and crashing down on that rusty railroad spike, a perfect arc of blood pulsing from her thigh. Mom, I say. My voice is amplified in my ears as if traveling through deep water. I was hardly older than Sophie. My throat swells shut around these shards of language. Mom pushes herself up from the table, carries her cup to the sideboard of that farmhouse sink I love so much. She leans against the porcelain, her broad back to me. From behind, Mom's hair is both flattened and tufting sideways. It hurts to look at her. I scoop Sophie up and balance her little body around my waist, her plump legs encircling the mound of my pregnant belly. I edge toward the porch door. Mom spins around and claps her hands once, twice, 3 times. Jeannie, she says, I am now closing the book on Michael and this particular sorrow. I recommend you do the same. Every day women are raped and beaten. They get over it, and so should you. Until then, do not darken my door with your self-pity. My mother turns to face the sink again, rinses her cup, and sets it exactly where it was a moment before. Then slings her purse over her shoulder. I imagine the silver pin under her skin from the surgery she had after the explosion she survived when she was a new mother. I picture the way the twisted metal keeps her arm stuck to her body as she walks through the narrow hallway, past the steep basement stairs, through the mudroom, and out my back door, her shadow stretching out long before her. Sophie cranes her neck in my mother's direction, uncurls her starfish hand to wiggle her fingers slowly at the empty spot where her grandmother just was. Grandma, bye-bye, she says. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeannine. That was really powerful. All right, we have a few minutes left. If anybody would like to ask some questions of our readers, or if you'd like to ask some questions to each other, feel free to do that right now. Everybody's getting a lot of compliments tonight. It's a really good group. Speechless, everybody's speechless. All right, if we don't have any questions, we will again remind you to support our community partner, the Next Step Initiative. Their link is in the chat. Links to all of our readers and their work are in the chat as well, so please support them. And I'd like to tell you about some upcoming events we have. On March 10th, we hope to see you back here on Zoom for a workshop called Biomythography. This will be focusing on myth making, and it'll be led by Samantha Edmonds. That's from 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. That's Eastern time. And you can RSVP on our Facebook, link in the chat. And then on March 31st at 7 o'clock, we'll be having the March installment of our reading series virtually here on Zoom again. Our readers will be AJ Odasso, Noli Reed, and Red Samaniego. And you can find more info about that again on Facebook, link in the chat. And we want to thank you all for being here. Thank for our wonderful readers for sharing their work. And thank everybody for supporting the arts during this strange time. Stay safe, keep creating. Everybody have a great night.